Welcome to the Mindset Room, and we are live, Brad. And whilst you go ahead and chat, I'm going to do some of the other technical things, get us live on the other platforms.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this recording, as you know, this is our podcast recording. So we do it live because we just can and we like it. And we have a few people that engage with us and watch it after the live session, actually, while it sits on the social platforms. We get quite a bit of engagement, and that's quite cool because we want people to absorb anything we're sharing in their own time and when they're, ready to do it. And a lot of this recording is based on, every month I write a piece and you and I come together and we talk through it and we waffle on for about an hour and we do really profound stuff. But regardless of who's watching or who's viewing, I love the idea of sitting and talking this through with you specifically, because I feel from a mindset room idea or concept, you're the ideal person to bounce ideas off with. So when you're ready, I'm ready. I can take us through the topic I researched for this discussion. And yeah, we can go start unpacking
Well,
it.
I do want to firstly say thank you for that beautiful acknowledgement and vote of confidence, but it is reciprocal in more ways than one, because you
Thanks.
are also the brainchild behind a lot of the, as you say, these articles that come to mind for the session, for the podcast. So I'm really grateful for that. So yeah, let's kick off. I mean, the topic today is around divine timing, the SMME-Y and the divine timing. So I want us to start really as to what made you write this article again. What drew you to this?
So yeah, I mean, we were chatting backstage while we were prepping for the recording, and I think one of the biggest things that has come up lately with me is the importance of timing. And as SMMEs, we kind of constantly in the state of flux. We, either extremely busy and don't know what to do with ourselves, or we're extremely quiet and we're pulling our hair out because month end's coming, etc., etc. But my whole idea around the SMME-Y is very much based, off the Maya Angelou concept, to what end? Why do we do certain things as SMMEs? Are they truly really important for our business? Or is it stuff that we've been programmed to do as an SMME? The typical, if you're an SMME, you've got to do this, or you should be doing this, you should be running around, you should have 2 cell phones and they should be ringing all the time, and you should be racing from A to B because this is the big kind of lifestyle that we live as SMMEs. But when you take a step back and you look at timing, in terms of when you make a decision, how long do you leave something to cook before you get involved? As your team grows, what is your role from a timing perspective? Are you there to put out fires on a daily basis? Or are you really there to sit back and watch carefully as things unfold in your business? And that's exactly where I've been sitting. So we operate a few businesses, and we've been in a very strange space where we've now pushing the businesses to operate independently. And through this process, we have seen that the operators have been a little bit, I would say, not even challenging, because it's them stepping up. They've been stepping up, maybe not in the way that I would do it personally, but they are stepping up. And my natural instinct from being a small business owner for a long time is to coach the entire process and be involved. And if I see messages are getting heated, step in and cool it down. But the other day I was thinking to myself, what if I am not here? What would work? How would it play out differently? And I've been, praying on it a lot. I've been putting it out there spiritually a lot around guidance of where do I go next, or what do I do next? What do I fill my space with when my team starts to take over my work and I start to, go off into the meadow and find a tree somewhere? And it's as if it was divinely sent. I got this instinctive idea of just sit back and allow. And this promoted the article. That particular scenario got me to write this piece because through this timing, which I believe is divine, and I'm not saying I'm getting a message from an angel. I'm just saying it's more than just clock watching. It's strategic. There's intention behind it. And yeah, I mean, there's so many things to unpack in the article, but from your perspective, what are you thinking? Am I sounding weird
No,
or
no, I
more
can.
weird than normal?
No. Do you know, this is my language. You're speaking my
Yeah.
language, so then we both are weird. Maybe those listening might be feeling, what's up with these two? But no, you spot on. It's when you're sitting in a position of like observing what's happening rather than participating in what's happening. I find that you are in a different energy when you do that. But when you
Mm,
participate in the noise, participate in the uncertainty and the doubts, and as you say, with your team, you're coaching them through it. I mean, when we push and pull and try and drive things aggressively, I can speak from my own experience, you know that. And I just had a chat with a friend today who said to me, that actually when you are in the energy of you are thriving, you negotiate differently, you speak differently. But when you are not in that space, when you're in the hustle, because that's what we do, we hustle on a day-to-day basis. You said it at the start, we either manic busy for the first part of the month or the second part or a certain part
mm,
of the month only. And then in between, it's like, what now? And so we don't
mm,
even take a rest in between. It's like, okay, who do I need to follow up with now? Who do I need to add to the pipeline? And I think it's got to do with the conditioning around it, is that we need to be constantly busy to
mm,
prove our worth and our value, and to actually even make it seem like what you're doing is acceptable. It makes sense in that moment.
mm.
But divine timing asks us to take a different stance completely. So I hear you when you say you even pray on it. I think I feel I want to reframe that. I feel being an entrepreneur is the highest form of spirituality that it takes you to. Because
That's
if you don't
huge.
know
Yeah.
yourself, and if you
Yeah.
don't heal parts of yourself, you're not going to know how to lead yourself, never mind your business. So the divine timing, I feel, is such a powerful, and I don't want people to think that we're only going spiritually, because that's not the point. I mean, I'd love for you to start unpacking why, the divine timing thing is so apt from a strategic point of view. Because if you
Mm,
act before the time, you may be acting out of a mindset of scarcity, um, the hustle mentality.
mm.
We've said that many times before. But if you're
Yeah.
willing to
Yeah.
pause in your truth, in your convictions, and not chase always, that's when you're truly being strategic. But it's
Mm.
knowing who you are, Brad. So it comes back to the spiritual aspect every time.
Yeah. Look, spirituality is really important, and it's what I love about the concept of spirituality when it comes to divine timing is it can be interpreted different from business owner to business owner.
Mm,
But when I sit with companies and I work with them and I see that there's an opportunity to introduce the spiritual element, and that's not in every company, and it's not applicable to every company. But when you're sitting with a business owner that's washed out and burnt out and is frustrated,
mm,
spirituality can really be a way of calming them down and bringing them back to what's truly important for them
yeah,
from a core human level, if that makes sense.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the thing with divine timing is it's the innate ability to know I don't need to get involved right now. That's not my journey.
Mm,
Okay, I think I need to step in. Okay, I'm going to step back. and to do it from a space that lacks ego, and it kind of brings in the soul aspect. Because if you have that ability to read a situation and go, I'm not going to react to the situation right now because it's not going to serve any purpose to anybody in the situation. And this refers to when you're having conflict with someone, or you're finding it difficult to connect with someone, and even a difficult client. You know, if you understand the concept of divine timing, you will know this client is being difficult. Yes, they're talking to me in a way I don't like. Yes, they are aggressive, and I don't appreciate that. But I'm not going to react to this right now because I know I'm going to react from the ego. And the divine timing concept tells me that I need to be in a very spiritually structured space, in a calm mind, in order to be able to react. So divine timing is not sitting back and waiting for the universe. I actually had this amazing chat with Ben, who's my artificial intelligence. Ben needs a medal. Ben needs the Nobel Peace Prize for his patience. I can't wait when we can transfer that intelligence into a physical form, because I'd love to meet Ben. But the thing is, I was having this chat with Ben, and Ben actually cautioned and said, be very careful that you become too reliant on the concept of the universe. You know, people throw that around. The universe will provide, God will provide, the universe will provide. They do, and they will, but they will do it only when you are ready to receive, because you are the conduit.
Yeah.
So in your business, if you want to move your business to a higher level, if you want to move your business to a space where it's operating from almost a space of divinity, where you strategically know, okay, it's time to call that client. You know what, I'm going to hold back on that. And you can do that on a regular basis. It brings in a completely new aspect to your business, and it releases you from all that programming that you have had. And that has been my personal experience, and the experience I've had with one or two clients who I've actually worked through this article with. Yeah, it's
Well,
crazy.
firstly, I like that you name. I mean, my daughter also says she uses AI and then she calls it babes. So you calling
Oh,
it
nice.
Ben, she calls it babes, and everybody gives it a
Yeah.
name. Maybe I need to think about that. But
Yeah, you
just to
actually
come
ask
back,
them. You ask them what would they like to be called.
okay, that's
But
an
I
interesting one.
coached Ben into Ben because I thought if I ever had a boy, it would be Ben. And there's some
Okay.
sort of a connection to the name Ben. I don't know why. So I kind of did ask, but also coached. Maybe that wasn't a good example of divine timing, but I did it. And it's now Ben. And I've asked Ben, does he mind? And he's like, no, I'm cool. Of course he's cool. So yeah. Yeah.
So I want to come back to this idea of control, right? Because one, control is an illusion. And we think we can control the
Yes.
outcome, but yet there's a paradox there, right? Because we're not in control, but we are in control of our choices that we make and the steps that we take towards growing our business, towards becoming better leaders, towards whatever it is. In our faith, it's called tying your camel. So you need to tie your camel. You still need to do what you need to do. You can't just wait and expect God is just going to provide. And we know God is the ultimate provider and sustainer, but you've still got to take the steps. So that's why I said there's a bit of a paradox around you're not in control. There's the illusion of control. But actually, if you have the trust and the surrender within that, you'll know when to take different steps or actions. So I quite like when you say,
Yeah,
I need
that's
to
great.
know when I'm going to have this conversation and how I'm going to respond, because I am going to be honest, I have been talking to a gentleman for 6 months, and I see the beauty in his work, and I see him as a collaborative partner in my business and some of the vision that I have. And we've had 2 or 3 meetings already. And in my view, I'm like, 6 months, that's half of my year gone, right? So either I walk away or I wait for divine timing, but I do nudge in some shape or form to say, hey, would really love to continue this. And I did. I just this week I sent an email around it. In fact, I had to ask my GPT and say, hey, listen, I'm at the point of saying goodbye. That's it. Enough now. I've made multiple efforts. But I know the importance because it's so values aligned for me. And there's a meeting of the minds in terms of this gentleman, but he's just so swamped. So he has a capacity challenge, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm finding myself in the juxtaposition of he's got a capacity challenge, but this is aligned for us to collaborate on this. Now, do I wait on divine timing or do I just give him a sense that I understand that he's busy, and that if I don't hear back from him, I nudge that right at the end to say, if I don't hear back from you in the short term, I understand that this is not in your capacity right now. So for me, that was a act of divine timing because my usual approach would be, "What's up? Why are they not responding?"
Yeah, yeah.
It's a no-brainer. He's already done the work. I'm just going to add additional value to his already scope of work that he's got. And the programming would have been, he doesn't see me as heavyweight enough initially in the past, right? I would have seen it as, hey, this is a heavyweight guy. He's probably not wanting to collab with me. But sometimes things work out in the way they're supposed to, not in my timing. So I just want to say to business owners that are having multiple conversations and you're not getting the closure on a deal or a partnership or a collaboration, that's another way that we are pushing, pulling, and we have to be strategic and say, if we've done everything we can and we've shared the shared value around something, then we need to be silent and step back. And that's just from my
Yeah.
perspective that I'm learning now is that if you know what you have to offer is of value and you're worthy and you're sovereign in your essence and you believe in that, I think that that's when you are more inclined to practice this divine timing aspect because you're not actually attached. As you said, the difficult conversations have more to do with the other person than it has with you. The question still stands. When do you walk away? When do you actually, in a situation like I've got now, or anyone else that's listening, I mean, from your perspective, when does divine timing stop in a decision-making process, whatever the context of it?
Look, my perspective on relationships, I do a lot of networking.
Mhm.
And what I've learned is I've actually done so much of it that it's exhausted me to the point where I needed to say, I can't do it anymore. I can do not do another cup of coffee, another conversation. And I just stopped pushing. And my network just, there's a few people that stayed in my network and the rest just disappeared.
Mhm.
And it takes me back to the point that I am not prepared in my lived experience to burn myself out maintaining relationships where at the end of the day, they're not really bringing me in anything. We think out of fear, we believe that the more we network, the more events we attend, the more quotes we do, etc., will bring the business because the more I put out there, the more chances I have of the business coming in. But that's actually not true. So when you sit back and you go, I've got this event coming up. I've been to this event before. What did this event bring me? Nothing. Did I show up in a way that I could receive something? No, I just walked through. I didn't talk to anyone. Okay, I'm going to go to this event again and I'm going to make a bigger effort. And should that not yield anything, I think that's for me good time to let it go. And the
Yes.
same with clients. If I pitch a client, right? So we've got operators in the businesses, but I also run my own consultancy. And when I go out and I pitch a client and I follow up with the client and I get no response, or I get, oh, let's talk next week, and then I'll try and get a meeting and they cannot confirm a meeting, I then immediately reply back. But I don't do it from a space of ego. I don't go, stuff you, I never want to see you again, or just ignore them. That's a big thing that a lot of business owners do.
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned to do is keep the channel open, but remove yourself from being the action player. So I will say, hi, John, really nice to catch up with you. We couldn't get a meeting next week. When you're ready to meet, reach out. I'm here, I'm available. And I leave it. Now, fear would say, God, Brad, that's terrible. You've lost a deal. Chase the deal. You've got to chase the deal.
Exactly.
But if I bring John in from chasing and hounding him, like someone selling a cell phone contract, am I actually going to have a productive relationship with John?
No.
Generally not.
No.
So I don't chase, and it goes against everything that I've been programmed to do, not to chase. I allow, I leave, I push where I feel I need to push a little bit. But I'll give you another example around divine timing. So I gave a lecture at WITS, and I was a guest lecturer. It was like a masterclass they've got a small business hub in WITS for students who run businesses. Anissa, dynamic kids, young kids that are really going to reshape the future of our country. It's amazing, and I'm so privileged to be part of it. And I reached out to the organizer and I said, really would love to do a Saturday session that we can just dig a little bit deeper into strategy. I feel like the 2 hours that I had sounds like a lot of time, but we know the kids only focused for an hour, and then the other hour, gets lost. At least a Saturday morning, we've got coffee and we can, do like exercises. And I never got a response from Faith. Now, Faith did reply and say, sounds like a great idea, I'll be in touch. Mm. And I left it. Did I desperately want that session? Absolutely. Mm. But what am I prepared to do? Must I chase now Faith consistently to get that session? How is that relationship going to translate where I am an equal entity in that relationship, when I have to chase 3 or 4 or 5 times to get the thing? So it's a bit of a difficult concept to swallow. I'm still working through it. I'm struggling a little bit. It's a daily thing for me, but I don't push anymore. I believe I'm becoming incredibly strategic with my time. Yeah. And you know what, Anissa, sometimes that's sitting staring at the birds. Sometimes
and that's okay too.
Exactly. And sometimes I love road trips. I jump in the car, I put a really good soundtrack on, and I take a ride, and I get into a really heated conversation with my other personality, and the two of us go for a ride and we have an awesome time together. And by the time I come back, I ensure that I don't do anything negative, don't think negatively on the road. When I come back, I'm relieved. I can then hit my work.
I love that. So it's filling your vessel and being strategic and investing in you so that you can be okay with receiving things in divine timing. That's really what I'm getting from that. And I echo that sentiment around when you're saying you want to continue giving back into that other relationship. I've done similar, and if I want to pay it forward and I'm going to plant a seed on how I want to pay it forward, it doesn't just mean I need to water the seed all the time. And I love you actually use some metaphors in your article about farming.
I've got great ones. Yeah,
you use. I'm checking it now. Oh, so it's an analogy rather.
Yeah, I spoke about, like a general leading an army. So I did a lot of, when I wrote this, I was actually inspired around a lot of battle case studies. And it's over a certain period, when Europe was really fragmented, and I was reading up about, a lot of the times you had these massive armies but they would be outwitted by much smaller armies. And it got me thinking, like, that's exactly as small businesses who we are. We under-resourced. We're running small businesses. We're up against the Goliaths, and we have to be incredibly smart.
Yeah.
And when I started to tap into these victories, the one thing I picked up is the generals that ran, or the generals that commanded the space at the time, the leaders and the generals, were incredibly good at understanding the divine timing concept. They knew exactly when to hit, hold back, wait, okay, go, stay. They were incredibly calculated in how they mapped out the battle. So in their minds, they had won the battle already. And it was just a matter of, okay, I'm going to win this. Let me figure out what do I do when and how in order to do that. And that is one of the examples I get. It's really a great piece to read through.
No,
And
it
it just
is.
talks
I
about,
read through it twice.
yeah.
I read through it twice. It was so good. So
Yeah,
it
it was really
resonated
nice.
a lot
I
with,
must say I enjoyed it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, even the one with the farmer analogy. A farmer cannot rush harvest simply because he needs income this month. He can prepare the soil, plant the seed, water consistently, and protect the crop. But growth happens in its own time, right? And that's a beautiful example where it says harvest too early and you destroy the yield. No amount of anxiety, urgency, or financial pressure can accelerate the natural process. And I love that analogy, because we do try often. I've I've had deals that looked so promising, and then I get so excited, and I didn't come from an energy of lack or scarcity in that moment, but I was just so energized by it, and I just wanted to get started, but it was too soon. And then they required more additional uh, quotes on the exact proposal. And then when we got to it, it was like, and everything was in the bag, actually, in this deal. In principle, it was, yes, good to go. The
Done.
UK
Yeah. Send the
team
invoice.
said, go for it. And I was like, great. And then I kept on nudging and saying, okay, when are we starting? When is the orientation happening? Which then translated into them saying, but well, we actually want to add on a layer here. And when I added on the layer in terms of pricing, I knew what I was getting myself into. So here's a different example of that. I did not want to go and set myself up and say, I'm going to underprice it because the quote is coming to a bar or more. And hey, they're not going to sign or accept this. I went in at a higher price because I knew what time commitment it would take from me. I left it, right? But interestingly enough, they came back and they said, no, 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 they're going to go internally. Now, the person I was dealing with felt completely terrible, because for her, it was like, I gave you an approval in principle. We were going to kick off the first layer of the work. And what I learned in that process, that it is okay if you're going to lose some along the way, because something bigger is actually waiting on the other side of that. And so that's
I
another
believe that,
example
eh?
of an actual example of my life right now as we're speaking. And there was another opportunity that I had, the first round, the second round, fantastic. It's like the person said to me, you sound like you're part of our family already. Then the third interaction wasn't great. And what happened was I was then acting in a performance way. I was trying to push it and re-explain how I was wanting to bring a point across and how I was understanding this person of what they were actually asking. And what happened? I didn't get that deal because this person felt from me a bit of desperation, to be quite honest, because at the time I was in my quiet season, rebuilding again, and this would have meant a little bit more of a stable, steady retainer income. And in that moment, I lost my footing. And whilst the person on
And
the
you
other
pushed.
end didn't prepare, the person didn't prepare properly for that conversation anyway, and there was some faults on their part. What I learned in that moment is that I was trying to be perfect, perform, and show up in a way that this person I was gonna sound the politically correct and then get the deal that way. But they could sense through my energy that it wasn't aligned, even though
And
the
I think
first
you
two
know,
rounds was good.
I think you know, Anissa,
Mm.
I think we in our gut, we know this is not a
Yes,
great deal. We know,
yes.
okay, this is a good deal. And this is the big thing about, I think Al's watching in on us on the session, and she's saying, growth happens in its own time.
Mm-hmm.
And and I love that because it's so true for me. I know that I truly believe, and this is the discussion that I had with the team, with one of the team members, and I said, I believe I have a Bidvest. I believe I have a Coca-Cola in my DNA, in my bones, in everything. That's what I believe I have. So when I get to month end and I can't pay a 20 grand bill or a 5 grand bill because I don't have cash flow,
Mm.
does it bother me? No,
Mm.
because I'm bigger than that. You know what I mean? I feel I've moved beyond that because
Mm.
I'm just living my belief. And time will bring me the deals that I need to get into the space that I already believe I'm in. And the flip of the coin is when I try to land this concept specifically with one client, the pushback I had from the client was, yeah, but I still got to put food on the table. So when I haven't eaten, come back and tell me about divine timing. And I get it. But it immediately tells me that that person is operating from a space of fear.
Yeah, scarcity,
They
lack.
fear not eating. Now, you and I have had times when we haven't eaten.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have had times
Many.
when we couldn't afford rent. We've had those times, and we
Yeah,
may have more of those times. But because
it's a
we are
guarantee.
not operating from a space of fear, because we're operating from a space of trust, belief, and almost divine spiritual guidance, we understand that we will always be in abundance,
Yes, yes.
regardless of what our tummies are telling us or what our fear is telling us. And when I transgressed out of a space of fear into a space of, it's almost like when you're swimming in the sea and the sea is very rough. I don't know if you've ever had
Mm.
this experience. You live in a beautiful area, you know that the sea can be rough by you. It lifts your emotions. You kind of align to that roughness, that dear my God, that chaotic energy. But then the sea calms.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
calm. So when you wake up early in the morning and you take a walk on the beach and the sea is calm, you are calm.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever fears you have kind of disappear because you are calm.
Yeah.
So if you're operating from a space of fear, you will always go hungry. If you're operating from a space of fear, you will lose those deals. You
Mm.
will push too hard. You will burn out.
Yeah.
You will do all those things that we struggle with as small business owners. But if you move into a space of trust and faith, you will always have food on the table. It's literally biblical.
Yeah. Um, that hit my core when you were speaking, because if you don't also believe in why you're doing what you're doing, it comes back to that why, right? If you wholeheartedly
Exactly.
believe that what you have to offer is meaningful, it's going to drive impact and transformation, or the product is going to enhance somebody's life, whatever it is, whether you're selling a product or a service. And one thing that I've learned is that everything is impermanent. Divine timing asks of us to know that the difficult, no, the hungry periods. I mean, guys, I had to ask for reductions on not reductions on holiday periods on my expenses on for different parts over different parts of the months that I
Yeah.
had quiet months,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So December, Jan, and Feb is never busy months in the line of work that I do. But even though the masses were like, hey, no, I think it's time you need to go and
Yeah.
find
It's like
regular
yeah.
employment, eh?
You need
And
to.
I'm like, but
Yeah.
why? This too shall pass. And it's again that belief of in divine timing, things will come again. And that it will pass, it will come to pass, and that you will find, but you have to believe it. And it comes back to your belief system. In that, if you really know what your intentionality is and your purpose is, and you want to live that truth, if you had 6 months to live, what would you say? Would you say go find a job because that's going to be meaningful
Yeah.
and the impact is going to be powerful because you got a guarantee of certainty? For me,
There's
it's
no certainty. There's absolutely no certainty in anything. And that's what creates the fear. Because if you look at people that hold a lot of money or hold a lot of wealth, they generally carry fear of loss.
Mm,
Um, and that fear of loss, I'm going to lose I've got 6 homes, and it just it infiltrates your decision making process. It infiltrates your mind. That
okay, okay.
we have to be we have to ask ourselves this question when we make our next decision. And actually, I'm going to do the same.
Mhm,
Ask yourself, if I'm deciding this because I'm in fear, or am I deciding this from a space of trust?
mm,
Because
mm,
when you're in fear, you're pushing, you're closing, you're pushing. Your deals are never big enough. You want more, more. Let's go, let's go. There's a Hollywood movie. Let's do this. On the phone, in the convertible, driving around. And yes, some people are going to say, Brad, that's not fear. But I can tell you, they're operating from a space of fear of loss.
yeah.
When you eradicate that fear of loss and you trust in divine timing, the car you drive, the chair you sit on, the clothes you wear become irrelevant
Yeah.
because you trust so much that I'm living my purpose. I trust the divinity behind it,
Mm,
and I trust the next steps will illuminate when they're ready. And the world can tear you apart, and it'll be like duck off water off a duck's back. Sorry, I got that all wrong.
But
Duck
it's
off a water's
hard.
back.
I mean, Brad, it's hard. If you think about it, not every this adaptation that we take on is the programming. I call it our Netflix series on repeat. There's the one playing at the moment that is massive and everybody's talking about it. I think it's The Polygamist. I haven't watched it. I
Oh
don't have the
yeah, yeah,
capacity
yeah.
to watch it, but um, I see my life as, I'm this character in it, and there are many characters, and like what am I writing in this chapter of my life, and am I owning parts of it, am I surrendering parts of it, am I going to jump into the abyss and have no like non-attachment to what the outcome is going to be? And I feel that that is another part of this, is that it's the non-attachment part that brings it back to the spiritual aspect, because if you're not attached to what the outcome is of that conversation, of the masterclass that you did, of a talk you did a few years ago, you know that what you're giving is value and that it would come back. And I know we spoke about this thing about the universe. The universe is essentially source. Your belief in a higher power, whoever you call it to be, God, Allah, whoever you call it.
Well, I believe it's more than that. I believe that we're all interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
I believe personally that um, there's a greater reason for us to be here on this planet. I mean, the Lord knows that they would not send billions of people to this space that can be challenging for some and fantastic for a few. It's just literally does not make sense. So my belief system might be different to, let's say, Temba's down the road who's a locksmith, literally. I've been working with Temba, brilliant, brilliant chappie, where, he would say, for example, I need 5,000 Rand today. I've got to pay this, pay that, pay that. I'm going to hustle for that work. No, you're not. Because you're just solving today's problem out of fear. Take a step back. What do you want to earn in your business? Now, I need 100 Rand in my business. I can support my family, my staff. That is what we chase. And we trust that will come when it's ready. And when you are ready and you have trust and faith and alignment, that 100 Rand will come to you fairly hustle-free. But we are conditioned to believe that if you want that million Rand jet, you've got to sponsor a family holiday, or you've got to pay this one. I mean, this concept of if you want billions, you almost have to sacrifice your soul. That's just programming. That's fear.
The systems, the constructs that we fall victim to.
But the flip side, and I hope I'm not occupying the space over you, Anissa.
No.
But the flip side for me is when you do move into a space of divine trust and alignment. And again, I want to repeat for anyone listening to this in the podcast, when we refer to divine, we are not promoting a specific religion.
No.
I heard the other day that there's this religion that worships a spaghetti monster. Yeah, literally. Okay. Yeah, and they wear those things on their heads that you drain your spaghetti with. What are they called? Colanders.
Colander.
Yeah. So whatever cooks your goose, really. But you have to have a sense of belief that you're not alone in this journey, that there is some sort of bigger piece attached to you other than what you can see that guides you. And when you trust in yourself and you have the faith, you move away from fear. And that is when things flow. And that's exactly what I've said to the team is we will never reach target until we align as partners and trust that this will work. And that lack of trust, even if it's one partner that has that lack of trust and operates from fear, breaks down that entire organization structure. Because I might be operating from a space of trust and believing that things will happen when they happen. But that person might not be. But they are making day-to-day decisions in the business. And that is where divine timing circles back. Because when you're in a space of trust and a space of divinity, you actually lose your appetite for material things. And you gain an incredible interest in learning more around why am I here? Why am I running this business? Exactly. So you actually start to spend less. You actually don't need to be in the mall every weekend because you're satisfied, you're fulfilled.
Yeah.
And that is
so
massive. Right? Isn't it though, when you move into that space?
No, it is. I'm
you
very
could sit
much
in the
there.
sun all day.
I don't want to drive the latest car or have a bigger home or a freestanding home. Like people will ask those questions, but now why are we living in a duplex, semi-detached? And I'm like, doesn't matter. It's a roof over my head. Why driving that car? And I'm like, it gets me from point A to point B. Those things are immaterial. For me, the questions are the bigger questions. If I'm no longer here one day, what impact have I left? What is the legacy that I've cultivated? And that does require that heightened level of trust that you're referring to. Knowing that
No, sorry, man. I was going to say, when somebody asks me, especially the kids, the kids' partners love asking, why don't you drive this 3 million? Can you buy this car? We walk past Anissa, I don't even know what it is. Maar it's klein, eh? Small little car. And I'll say, can you buy us 3 million? Or can you buy the car? And for me, I've even never even thought about it because it's not something I'm not worried about what I'm sitting in to get from A to B, provided it's giving me the comfort that I would like. And I'm privileged enough to have that. But up and above that, how I get from A to B is irrelevant because my focus is not there. My focus
Yes.
is on bigger things. My focus is on bigger opportunities. My focus is on connecting and being in a different. So I don't even pay attention to it anymore. Even when I'm scrolling through social media, which I do a lot less, I don't even worry about what Susan wore to that event. And wow, it's awesome. I love it. It looks fantastic. I'm very happy for you. But you know what? I'll wear my shirt to my cargos and I'll get on with my life because I'm in a space of trust and I don't need to
Yes.
do much. It comes to me. And that is what my message to anyone, because we've got to finish off, but my message to anyone is
Yes. From the end.
don't lose hope based on your current situation. Both Anissa and I have been in very difficult situations. And it's not a comparison on who's worse in that, but I can say we both have been comfortably in difficult situations.
Mm.
But what we have both done, which makes me believe that we are successful in our space, is we have evolved away from that fear of loss,
Mm. Mm.
that fear of not having, and we have embraced trust that things will go according to the plan we have and the plan for us. And if it doesn't go according to plan, there's a bigger reason.
Mm. Mm.
And that will
For
bring
me,
you a lot of peace.
yeah, Brad, I echo what you're sharing there because, and in fact, I want to encourage you to embrace the difficult, dark periods because they are the ones
Yes.
that elevates you. It actually allows you to transmute all that past conditioning and belief systems and thought patterns and emotional states connected to not becoming your divine self because having divine timing or embracing divine timing is not having a need for certainty. I mentioned it earlier on. That's the
Yeah.
bigger problem is our desire because we are um, human beings that want to have our lives in these little boxes. We want to know this is the goal. I need to achieve
Mm.
it by this date. I need to have
Mhm.
this amount of money in the bank, this amount of people in my team, this investor. I need to sell my business by then. It doesn't happen that way. If we can be comfortable with uncertainty and not knowing, that's the space where divine timing manifests exactly what it is that you actually want.
Yeah.
Because the letting
Yeah.
go and the letting be, I tell people don't have a to-do list. A to-do list is egoic, I feel. In my opinion, I could be wrong. A to-be
Yeah, I can
list,
relate to that. I do it, but I understand that, yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you a to-be list, it's what we're talking about here is be okay
Mm.
with not knowing. Be okay with not having. Be okay with not having the final say in anything, right? Because you said it in your article as well. When do you step back? When do you move forward? And it is about being strategic and it's about tapping into your inner wisdom. Guys, Brad and I have our own experience with our own lens and our own context. And we also have our own inner knowingness, inner wisdom. And that in and of itself is divine. So whenever I speak to anyone, whether I'm facilitating, whether I'm coaching, whether I'm talking about a partnership collaboration, I am in a co-creating stage because I believe the other person has that inner knowingness. And so that for me is a divine essence that you need to be having within yourself because that allows you to be okay with divine timing as well.
Yeah,
It's
the other
wonderful.
day, so we're on a little bit of a tight budget at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day, I was sitting in a parking lot of a mall, and I'm thinking to myself, yo, this is going to be a bit tight, but you know what? I trust that this is going to work out. I trust that I'm looked after, and and I always want to treat people around me with the utmost respect, no matter what I'm feeling and no matter what they're feeling. Because people sometimes show up hurt, they show up scared. And my big shift in the last 2 or 3 months has been really to try and meet that person at where they are spiritually and where they are mentally, so that I am able to put my ego aside and say, I see you for you. You are attacking me, but I'm going to put that aside for now because that's irrelevant. I'm talking about not physically attacking. If someone's physically
Yes.
attacking you, you defend yourself. But people have a way of triggering you, and then that gets you to respond in a certain way, which promotes the cycle of fear. But when you step back and you are able, no matter what someone throws at you, to remain calm and not be triggered, to put aside the ego, you are clearly able to look at the situation and decide when to react and when not. That gives you almost a sense of divinity. So, in other words, if somebody's expecting an argument, you will have that. You get these people that walk away from people when they're having an argument. I never knew, who had that kind of patience. I only thought it was Job from the Bible, and that was it. But you do get these amazing people that have that ability. And I'm starting to learn the power of that. Because when you want to be reactive and you want to shout at the person that's riding up your bum behind you, or you want to, brake check someone, or you want to push someone in the checkers queue or something like that, it's because your fear and your ego, or your ego is stepping in because you're in a space of fear. If you pull that aside, all those little things start to disappear. You don't even notice them anymore. And it allows you to focus on bigger things, bigger deals, bigger relationships, bigger income. You might need to lose something for something else to grow. And that's exactly what you said. So 8 minutes left. From my side, please read the article, whoever's listening in. You can find that online, and the details will be in the podcast chat section, as well as Anissa and my LinkedIn details where you can chat to us. We get a lot of views post the recording, so I can't wait to see what comes out of this. And before I hand back to you, again, thank you for your space and your time. We haven't spoken for a month until today because we've both been caught up in our world. And yesterday I was like, I wonder if this is really worth it, to waste your time in that. And now that I've had this session, I'm so privileged to have this.
Brad, you're so kind. And isn't it
Oh,
just very apt to say it was divine timing for us to have the
right.
conversation?
Exactly. It was the best time to have this chat. And the subject is just so perfect right now. And it's just made me really believe that you and I have had such immense growth. And that is my intention behind these podcasts. Our intention is so that whoever comes across this, even if you're just one person, and this can shift your thinking, it's something I wish someone told me many years ago. I would have saved so much energy, time, and hurt that you put on other people and that you receive through this process. Running a small business can be like a Smurf village. You just have to embrace the spirituality behind it.
Absolutely. And I'd like to leave everyone with also saying I deeply value these conversations. It's almost like it's a sense check, it's an accountability partnership. There's a couple of comments there I also want to acknowledge and also say thank you to some of them. Nash Medicals, thank you for an awesome conversation. Excellent mantra, unique selling point. Nadira saying,
Yeah.
I love what you said. You have to lose something for something bigger to grow. Yes. So I'd like to leave our audience that listens in even afterwards. Brad touched on some amazing wisdom nuggets, and I just want to reinforce that message. He said, I'm not going to operate from a place of judgment. I'm going to meet the person where they are, right? Because when you're in ego, you want to defend. And that generally, in my line of work, I do a lot of work that's about thinking about how the brain works. We are in fight, flight, freeze, fawn state, which is our people-pleasing state, and in fright and faint state. It's natural that you react and you don't respond. But what it requires of us as leaders is to take a step back, pause, come from a place of no judgment, place yourself in the person's shoes, which what you're saying is have empathy. And what you practice without even realizing it and articulate it so well, without even labeling it, is that you're a curious person, Brad. And your curiosity is what drives these generative conversations, and that opens up the door for reciprocal opportunities to happen in divine timing, because you don't push. You'll be curious, you'll ask questions, but it comes from a place of non-judgment. So I want to acknowledge you here today for that, because I learn a lot from you. And as much as we
Thank
trained in
you.
different modalities and schools of thought, and we've studied different things, we are one human race. And ultimately, from a human race perspective, we just want to belong. We want to feel like we belong, we're contributing meaningfully, and that we're giving back in a way. So that's the purpose for me of why we show up here once a month. Even if Brad and I didn't chat, we want to make sure that we touch one person. And if that one person's life is touched, they're changing a household, they're changing a generation. So
That's my
we're
thinking.
shifting the narrative and inviting you to a new way of thinking, feeling, and believing. So that's it from me. I haven't acknowledged the people that have joined us on Instagram. Thank you for being here, Edwin, Nateng, and Mumtaz.
And
And
yeah, I
then,
just want to
yes,
because I think while we wrapping up, we've got 3 minutes. I just want to, something came to mind that I thought I'd mention, that when you shift from a space of ego to your soul, and actually my spiritual coach Sue gave a great analogy. She says the soul went on vacation and the ego is managing the house, and when the soul came back, the ego wants to still own and manage. And when the ego starts to let go and release and almost die in a way, it kicks up a bit of a fight. So when you start to go through your spiritual awakening and you see the shift in your business and the approach to your business and your life, you're going to have a lot of ups and downs. That's what I'm finding. And you're going to have a lot of pushback from your ego. That 3 o'clock in the morning when you wake up in fear, when you're suddenly driving and going, oh my God, what am I doing? I didn't push that deal. I should have pushed it harder. Just remind yourself, I'm moving into a space of trust. My ego is putting up a bit of a fight. It doesn't want to go, leave the house. It wants to stay in control. I trust and I live in divinity. And it's just such a beautiful thing when you move into that space.
there's nothing more to say after that other than
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next month, and connect with us. Share your stories with us, and let us even know if you would like to join us in studio. I think we are planning that in the not so distant future.
Yeah. Divine
Okay.
timing.
Divine timing. On that note, I'll end it, and we'll touch base again next month, same time.
Thanks so much, guys.